Hello, Hockey World. How are you all doing today? We're back talking to you again, like we do all the time. It feels like we're talking to you constantly, which is nice, and we like to keep you in top of things. And I've got a lot of not a lot of sleep, but a lot of stuff to talk about today because we are not even close to being done this thing.
Yeah, we're doing a lot better than people in Calgary are doing, but we'll talk.
We'll talk about all that too, and we'll get to all that as well. Just fixing my sound here so I can hear everybody. Mm-hmm. Yeah, do you have anything for us today, Russ, to start with?
Yeah, dude. Okay, so cool. I want to say the NBA is doing something here, and I get something is better than nothing, but they've agreed to give $25 million in recognition payments to former ABA players. Now, just to let you know, the ABA hasn't been around since 1974.
Wow.
74, I think, was
I remember.
When they started to make the transition to the NBA. And if you think about it, there are a lot of players that never really made it. 76 was the merger, sorry. And so there's a lot of players that, played 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, didn't make a lot of money. What they did was they decided that the ones that played 3 or more would get money. So it's going to help 115 former players. But again, listen to the amount. So one player, if he played 3 years, would get $3,800 for the year. Again, better than nothing, but considering what the NBA is worth. And then if you played 5 seasons, you would get $19,000. Again, better than nothing, but compared to what the NBA has going for it in revenue, and the fact that they merged with that league and they waited this long, I think they could have done better.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it is something. It's one of those. It's one of those difficult situations, right? Because it is something. It is better than most other situations.
Correct.
Like I don't know what the Negro leagues and everything like that. If MLB has ever done anything for them,
No, other than recognize their statistics.
Yeah.
Right. So I mean, this is something, right? So
and in the NFL, like some of the players who had retired previously, they're now I believe they're covered under the medical insurance of the NFLPA, but that's about it. And it's like really it's sort of reparations and it's pennies on the dollar. So really it's weak. It's
really weak. It is. It's a shame. I mean, like you say, there's so much money now. It's amazing to me how much
and the NBA got better because of the ABA.
Oh yeah, no question about it, right? With the NHL division, with the WHA, right? I guess would be the comparable WHL or whatever.
No. I mean, the 4
WHA,
teams,
right? Yeah,
the 4 teams that came in, and obviously Gretzky came out of the WHA, which let's not start that because
but they folded in Gretzky and Messier, and they got a lot of key players
and Michel Goulet and Stastny and all those guys. Yeah, so.
Yeah, those things die. Man, they die. In order for those grudges to die, the people have to die. I've learned this. Like, the WHA grudge is still at the NHL. If you go to the older people that are still around, that sit at that one table that we go when we have the media, when you have the NHL finals, right? The guys just sit at that one table rest after they have Worlds.
Yeah.
You know what I'm speaking of. The really old guys from the NHL, they still don't believe Bobby Hull should be in the Hall. It's like they still it's like that still exists. Gosh. Still exists. All right, here we go. Let's get going.
Count, and there's no way in hell they're ever going to do it.
No, never. No, absolutely. If they did, that changes a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we give Gordie Howe I think what he deserves as far as goal totals.
Right, and Gretzky still would be past him, obviously, but still, Gordie should be number 2, for sure. And someone will catch Gordie at some point, probably. Just barely or whatever.
Ovechkin's only 21 goals behind Gordie Howe.
Goals behind
without the WHA.
Right, exactly. All right, here we go. Hello, Hockey World. It is Thursday, July 14th. I don't know how I don't know that. 2022.
I'm Michael Agello, and Generalissimo Francisco Franco is still dead.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology, and I just love how the date is like an open book test for Eck.
I know, it's amazing. I'm Eklund. You're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday to fill you on the comings and goings in the hockey world. And I got a little sleep last night, not a whole lot. Still, there was still stuff going on until 1 a.m. I I slept for an hour yesterday during the day. I texted Mike, I'm going to sleep for an hour. And in that hour, you know, there were reports come out that the Flyers are out of the Gaudreau sweepstakes and all that stuff. We should start with Gaudreau, obviously. This is the big story and how it went down. And I know some things I don't think that have been reported yet, so we can get into that. That too. But
tell us that so we don't like cross over.
Yeah, okay. So
and honestly, your rumor was right on target with that, because I hadn't even a thought of Columbus until you asked Mike to post that when I saw that, and I was like, oh, interesting.
Yeah, no, it is bizarre. I mean, there's name calling going on today. I've talked to people from New Jersey. I've talked to people from the Islanders. The Islanders, Devils, and Flyers fan bases are all really mad. The Flyers, all the front offices of the Devils and Islanders are mad. There wasn't a whole lot of communication that went to them, is what I was told. Like, there was basically the Devils the last the Devils talked to the camp was, you know, yesterday morning, and they were told that they were the offer to beat, and they didn't even go back to them, from what I was told, which is kind of crazy. And that, you know,
well, we knew that could happen. I talked about that.
Yeah, the Devils
could
get used.
Would be with Columbus,
right? You know, and you think Columbus is getting used too. You know, Gaudreau, I do believe, and you know, the Flyers came out and said they were never in it, and that's just anyway. That is what teams have to say. Is all I can say. I guess that's what teams feel like they have to say. But Gaudreau, if you ask Gaudreau, he would tell you the Flyers were in it, and that had a big part of him leaving. So suddenly Gaudreau's in a situation where waiting for the Flyers to get things to clear cap space. They're not clearing cap space. And they can sit back and say, oh, we never really wanted to, but they did want to.
If they cleared the cap space.
And Gaudreau, I think believed fully that they were going to. And I stick by exactly what I said yesterday as what was going on yesterday.
I think you're right, because it took a long time. And I think that was probably, I do believe, for a little while, until, you know, Chuck Fletcher had his press conference, that he was hoping that maybe the Flyers would clear this cap space.
Well, they weren't willing to give up that first round draft pick that was theirs in 2023.
And can we talk about that for 1 second?
Yeah.
Everybody keeps saying, I don't understand why. If you're all in, I don't understand why. It's easy. I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
Because there's probably a belief by more than a few people in the Flyers hierarchy that not only could they miss the playoffs, but if you trade the first round pick, that gives up a chance to get either Bedard or Michkov or Fantilli, you're making a big mistake. And that's why they wouldn't do it.
Right. That's exactly why they wouldn't do it. And I don't think that they were able to like protect it or anything like that. I don't think it would have been.
They could lottery protect it, but if you're asking a team to take JVR's $7 million salary for a lottery protected first, they probably weren't going to do that. So, I mean, okay.
And they'd already given up the picks that they gave up for D'Angelo, remember? So like they had other options.
D'Angelo wasn't a first though. Risto.
Yeah, it was. I think they could have gotten more creative than just a first round pick. They could have. It doesn't feel like, Gaudreau wanted to come to Philly. There is no question about it.
Let's talk geography for a minute, Ek, because some people in Canada are way overblown.
It's ridiculous.
It's like, this is a 10 hours away, New Jersey from Columbus. I drove to Columbus, right? I'm literally 10 minutes from Salem, and it took me 8 hours.
It's 8 hours. It's 7 hours.
It's under 500 miles.
Well, yeah, it's 500. Now listen, and then that's not close, but at the same time, but you also have to realize that he's got his son or a kid. I don't know what it's going to be, but a kid on the way.
Right.
And I really don't know what it's going to be. I'm not just thinking, but the kid coming on the way. And
unless you have inside info,
I don't have any inside info on that.
It's a boy, E4.
Right, I don't know, and I promise you, I don't know. But his wife, from being from this area, he wants to be like, the travel for an Eastern Conference player is a lot different than the travel from a Western Conference player. Well, that is the reality.
Let's say this, because there was, as you said, there was hue and cry from the Northeast, from the Islanders fans and Devils fans and Flyers fans. And there was also hue and cry from Calgary fans who, if he had gone to the Devils, the Flyers, or the Islanders, could at least check off in their mind, okay, he wanted to go home. the fact that he went to Columbus, which, just check Google Maps to see, it's not around the corner, but it's an hour flight instead of a 4.5 hour or 5 hour flight. So that's that's significant. But the whole
in your private flights, like he's a very wealthy guy.
He's making over $9 million a year.
Right. And also the amount of time you been playing against the Flyers, the Devils, the Islanders, and the Rangers. The amount of time you're in this corridor, if you're in the Metro
Division, all those cities,
right?
But the Metro Division, it's all there, right? So it's like, you can drive to the entire Metro Division is within, they're the furthest team out. I guess Carolina is basically the same, about 8 hours out too, right?
So 95 sucks, so it's probably more.
But the whole point here is that Calgary made an offer at the 11th hour, reportedly over $10 million on an 8-year deal, and he decided to go the direction he went. And now Calgary's in the position where they're basically looking into the teeth of potentially a reset because we don't know what's going to happen with Tkachuk. The accusations against Gaudreau, it's like, okay, he earned the right to go wherever he wanted to go. I understand why Calgary fans are pissed off, but they should be pissed off at the organization, because if they thought there was any chance of this happening, they should have traded him last summer when they had a chance to.
Right. Yeah, they should have. Something else. Bradshaw living, miscalculated. But something else, just to let people know, Salem, New Jersey is very rural.
Yeah, it is.
I'm in Glassboro, but it's not that rural because of college. But you go 20 minutes south of me where there's Clayton, and once you hit Salem County, it's very rural. Right?
It's the Garden State, it's the Pine Barrens, it's all that.
Right. So obviously he didn't want to play in a big city for his whole career. He's got a family he wants to bring up. Columbus is a nice city. Apparently he's good friends with Werenski, and I didn't realize Eric Robinson, who I covered in Princeton, he's great friends with. He's known him for over 15 years. So, you have friends there. It's a nice little city. It is a great
city to live in. Like Columbus is and I've talked to people who live there, and they will tell you that it is a great city to live in. Like, not just a good city.
Right.
It's a great
So I fully get it. But there's some former players and otherwise out there that are just always thinking, well, you left $15 million on the table. I think Johnny Gaudreau is finally one of these guys that realized, that $15 million is great, but I'd rather control a few other things because I have more money than I can count right now.
Yeah, for sure. And I really think the travel amount, the travel gets to you, after a while. If you're in the Western Conference, it does, and you get a chance to actually. The trips that are so much shorter. It's just crazy. A lot. He'll be able to be with his kid a lot more often.
Yeah. Here's an example. We would always interview him right around Thanksgiving when Calgary would come into Philly. And he had just spent time, like a couple of days with his family. He did that every year without fail. And the schedule was like that every year without fail. But he didn't get to do it many other times other than like Christmas, if there was a way that they played on the East Coast.
Right.
So he missed a lot of that time. And now he wants to sort of get that time back. And he can. Because like X said, if there's a day off, he could fly. And he could be there right after a game and be there for a little more than a day and get to his next destination in the morning.
Easily. And, when your wife's parents are in that area, like when you have a kid, your wife's parents become a very important thing. Like that becomes something that it's a huge help to your wife. It's a huge help to everything. And, I've been through that situation too. It's just like, I quit my other career because of it. You really, when you have a kid, it just changes everything. And it's a really important thing. So I don't think I got really pissed off last night at the Canadian media, just like some of the Canadian media who are just like, who will never, ever give teams in the US that aren't like maybe the Rangers or Bruins, any credit at all, like as being actual places that people would want to go. Like, it was just amazing to me, the Canadian media just ripping on Columbus.
And I want to give Yarmo credit for this fact. He gave a quote and said, when you get a player of the caliber of Johnny Gaudreau and you find out he wants to play for you, you make the space and you get it done.
Yeah.
Now, Philly fans heard that and got very mad at Chuck Fletcher, which I get. And this is where I say Yarmo is an evil genius.
Well,
I know. He is such an evil genius. He looks like a villain. He looks like a Bond. Yeah.
He's the nicest guy, but he's smart. Go ahead.
Yes.
Just sort of defending the Canadian media in a sense. They're reflective of their fan bases because there's an inferiority complex when it comes to players that like American players in this instance, Gaudreau being from New Jersey. This is why a lot of these fan bases, the Quebec fan base, want players from Quebec. The Leaf fan base want players from Southern Ontario. I'm sure there are Calgary fans out there that are saying now after Gaudreau leaves, we've got to get the Albertans instead of kids from the U.S. or from Sweden, or it's just that they're more likely to stay in those places because that's where they're from than players who are from other places. The NHL is a very it's a league where you get people from all over the world, but there is parochialism when it comes to the fact that, players who are from those areas are more likely, if they're being offered the kind of money that Gaudreau was offered, to stay in those places. So this is a fan base.
That is true with everybody, by the way, not just athletes or people or players. It's
true
with
everybody. What's interesting, I think the one thing Mike hit on when we talked about it privately too, was he was like, if he had really gone home, like Canada would not say anything. Some of these people would not say anything. But because he didn't go home and he chose that over Canada, how dare they? How dare he?
No, it's true. It's true. And listen, I love Canada. Everything about it. I love Canadian people. I love the whole 9 yards of it.
Tons of friends there.
I could live in Canada in a heartbeat. I am absolutely 100%.
Only Vancouver, not the cold part.
I could live anywhere in Canada.
I can afford it, sure.
I'm going to Baffin Island next summer on a trip. I'm really just completely and utterly there. And I'm not trying to badmouth anybody in Canada. It's just give a little respect. I've dealt with it with Nashville for years. You dealt with it in Columbus. It's the same kind of thing. The Panthers, the Coyotes is a different story altogether. Everybody feels the way they feel about the Coyotes, not just Canadians and Americans, but that situation's a mess when they're playing in a college town. That's that has spun out of control. But you can have Canadian teams. Ottawa spun out of control for a while too. But
here's a quote from Yarmo from the press conference today. Joe Haggerty tweeted it. He basically said, "I get a rash every time I hear negative comments about Columbus. It's so unfair," and it's true.
No, it's 100% true. I texted him right afterwards. I'm like, what? Good for you, man. I said, I really felt. The person I felt the most good for, people I felt the most good for, were the Columbus Blue Jacket fans, who I know quite a few of, and they are absolutely not expecting anything on UFA Day. They've gotten to the point where they just don't even think that that's going to happen. And when I texted,
what about our favorite keyboard player?
I texted him when his deal was going down, when I thought it was going to happen, and he's like, and I'll read it. It was crazy.
Yeah. He's my second favorite because Rick Wakeman's my favorite. But anyway.
Yeah, so our buddy out there, I was like, this is crazy. He couldn't believe it, of course. So I said, Columbus is very much in the Gaudreau sweeps, and he's like, there's no way that he'll ever get him. And that was his response. I'm like, not so sure about that. And then I wrote to him.
I get it.
I wrote to him at 6:45, which was earlier than it was announced. I said, I think he's got him, but it's starting to sound like he's got him. Nothing definite, but and then I wrote, it's done. He's a Blue Jacket, and I just got a whoa. I can't believe it right now.
That's great though, because I'm sure that's how everybody was yesterday.
Yeah, and we all love this UFA Day because it's a fun, exciting day, and I like it that I really like the fact that fan base got a moment to sign the big fish and be like, they were the ones. Yeah. They were the ones.
But yes, after seeing Duchesne leave and Seth Jones leave and Bobrovsky leave and Panarin leave, it's nice to have somebody come in, but you've got Patrick Laine as an RFA. You don't have the cap space to sign him to a long-term deal or even a bridge deal. So does that mean that they're going to trade Laine? And you'd have to think that's a possibility because they have only $3 million in cap space, and you can't buy anybody out. So they may be in the situation of they're going to trade Laine.
I don't think they're going to, Mike. At least
I'm just saying they don't have the room right now, Russ.
No, I think they think they know how they're going to do it. He said he'd be able to do both. Yarmo did. So I don't know. I mean, whether or not, listen, another thing you have to get past this whole concept of Yarmo Kukalainen and his love of Finnish hockey players. It's like, just because he's Finnish does not mean it does. And honestly, I talked to him. It doesn't mean a frigging thing to him.
No, I mean, if it did, Puljujärvi would be on the team right now because they're trying to give him away.
Right. Remember, we passed up Pujari to get Dubois. Right. If anything, the number of Finnish players that were originally going to Columbus, I think, had a little bit more to do with Bill Zito, who had a big Finnish connection and had represented a lot of Finns,
right,
as a player agent. So
I remember,
and that's how you end up, and that's probably how they end up meeting Jarmo and Bill. I don't know, but the reality is,
Line A is a RFA with arb rights. If they go to arbitration with them and settle on a 1-year deal, that opens up a window for a buyout. They could buy out the final year in Gustav Nyquist's contract.
Yeah,
that would save them about $3 million, but I still don't think that would be enough room. So there is a move to be made. And that was the Gaudreau contract was that was what you have to pay to get him.
Yeah.
The Erica Branson contract that they signed, I don't know. That one, unless that was a package deal, like both Calgary Flame, if you
it wasn't. That
was a bad contract. I'm sorry. This is a limited player who can't skate that much anymore. He's, we saw that in the series against Edmonton, how he got blown around constantly.
Yeah.
And they signed him for not only for $4 million, but for 4 years. So that one,
that trade that was and I don't know at that point that they even really had a real good idea that they were going to be in on this Gaudreau thing. And when they signed him, it really did go down pretty quick, as I was told. And that and I do think I was told flat out by a Jersey person that they were told that he did not want to play for the Devils or Islanders because he grew up as a Flyers fan, which was really kind of crazy. But that's
the way he feels, though.
But that is when people want to know about the logic of this, and there is no logic to it, that might be where the logic is coming from. A little bit, sometimes the more you know, the more logical things can become.
I would never play for the New York Yankees.
But you'd wonder, I do firmly believe that he felt the Flyers were had the way to clear space. So he, I would be a little bit. I'm surprised he wasn't a little bit more angry at the Flyers at that point and said, "You know what, whatever." I'm not
and that was what I was going to say. Because how much of a ball has been dropped by the Philadelphia? First of all, okay, if you buy out Oscar Lindblom and get Gaudreau, then you're taking a PR hit, but it's understandable. All is forgiven because you've brought back the hometown boy to play for your team. It's inexcusable to buy out Lindblom, who's still an effective player, and not and all you have to show for it is Nick Delorier and Kevin Connaughton. Really, Chuck Fletcher and the Flyers should be excoriated by the media and their fan base because they really dropped the ball.
Well, none of us are saying anything positive. I was just on another show. You can't say anything positive about that. But Mike's right. Again, I'm sure last year at the deadline, they had an inkling that they could get Gaudreau. And that's when things should have started going into motion. So like you said, if they didn't have a first, they should have been compiling something else. They maybe should have tried to trade Konecny to a team and retain half salary. They should have done something so it didn't come all down to one day and a 4-hour period where if you fail, it can't happen.
Yeah. And and Fletcher has a history of this.
It's not just Fletcher. Everybody there, I even said, and Danny Briere may have done this. Even Danny Briere should have raised his hand a few weeks ago and said, "What is the plan to get Johnny Gaudreau? What do we have to do?"
Right.
And I don't know. Did they ever get through that? Because
I do think they got through that from talking to people.
Hope. It was a bunch of hope.
There was the feeling that teams would be willing at the last second to help them out. I think, and that is a horrible. That's a horrible plan. It's and they convinced even Gaudreau that was true. I think.
So that's one NHL GM trying to trust other GMs.
There was no way. They even. I heard even the Gossespierre got involved, to try to talk about how good Van Riemsdyk was as a player to the Arizona Coyotes. I heard a bunch of things yesterday that just were
Well, this is the thing. Honestly, based on the fact that Chuck Fletcher said yesterday, and I don't think I'm misquoting him here, Russ. He said we're done in free agency.
He did. No, they're done.
So we are done in free agency.
And just either watch the 3-on-3 tournament tomorrow or forget about the Flyers for the rest of the summer now.
So, okay. So no Kadri, no no Gaudreau, no Klingberg.
0 is 0, Mike.
So
well, I think the reality is this, like Mike, you're right. I mean, because they're done. But we all talked about, like, let's go back for a second. You know, no one wanted them to do this Gaudreau thing. Like you guys didn't. Mike, even Bill Meltzer on our website, no one thought it was a good idea to do the Gaudreau thing. Right. So the Gaudreau thing was more a result of this, like, local guy wanting to be here really badly, and some people in the organization saying that we should try to make that happen. Then it was like, now we should get Gaudreau. You know what I mean? That's not the way it plays.
Right. I'll give you a perfect example. This is like, and I can't remember what year it was, 2011, 2012, when the Brad Richards thing happened, and everybody was saying the Leafs have to go in on Brad Richards because he's from Toronto and because they need a center that, you know, they need to do. And they really, in Burke and Dave Nonis basically played lip service. You know, the Richards camp thought they're not really interested. We're going to end up going, and everybody knew he was going to the Rangers. Now, nobody knew where Gaudreau was going to go, but based on the actions of the Philadelphia Flyers, they played lip service here at trying to get Johnny Gaudreau. So Russ, I look at the Flyers right now, and I think they're the overwhelming choice for dead last in the Metro.
I mean, right now they're nominated, but I think it's like this. They didn't come out and say we like Johnny Gaudreau because they can't, right? And like I said. But we heard things, and even the Gaudreau thing got out, so clearly it was talked about. But in the end, if they don't use the words aggressive retool, none of us think they're even going to try it. Because why try it? You don't have the resources. You've given up so many assets already with this regime. Why are you going to do more? But we already were thinking they were going to try it, so we were in that mode. Like we all said they probably dodged a bullet here, but they didn't do it because that's what they chose. They did it because that's what happened.
Yeah, and Brad Richards is from PEI, not from
I think it is. You're right, Russ, to a large extent. I mean, it is what they happened, but in a way, their actions chose it for them too, if that's possible.
Right.
You know, I mean, it is what happened, but at the end of the day, there was somebody there who didn't want it to happen because it could. There was always a way of making it happen. And even if you give up that pick or you find another way, you give up.
Well, let's talk about Delorier. Like he basically used Delorier as one of the big trophies of the day. And to give Nick Delorier, you saw what happened on this show yesterday when I heard 4 years for him.
Yeah,
I was beside myself.
Well,
that is a big. This is where I disagree with you, actually. But but most people are on your side. Bill Meltzer also thinks it's unbelievably awful.
Well, let me just say this: Nick Delorier, because the word is out there that Bill Guerin wanted to keep Nick Delorier in Minnesota, but really couldn't afford it. Nick Delorier is a fantastic fourth line grinder player who can kill penalties.
Yeah.
But on the Flyers right now, under Tortorella, he's probably going to play third line, and that's a reflection of the lack of depth of the Flyers organization. So is it a bad signing? Maybe a year too long. I don't think they'll have a problem moving him, but
$1.75 million is not.
But they're not getting production out of him, Mac. They're getting hits, penalty kill, and
you don't expect that much production from him. And he does score goals once. And he
had 10 in his career like 4 or 5 years ago in Montreal. So if Torts puts him middle on the slot because he's a big guy, which Torts might do, maybe he gets 12. But in the end,
a couple playoff goals this year for Minnesota, I thought.
Yeah, I know he did. But again,
at the same time, I mean, honestly.
He's a fourth liner.
He's just a more talented Zach McEwen, like
a good fourth liner.
He's way better than Zach McEwen.
Right. My point is,
when we talked before about this. This is the kind of guy that I said they should be getting, as opposed to bringing the Zach McEwen to the world.
And I would agree with that, but not for 4 years. By year 4, you're hoping again. Everybody's like, well, it's just $1.75 million. Well, you see what happens when you start scrounging with the cap, no matter what the cap number is.
No, I agree. He is also a guy that the contract length makes it harder for him to be moved to the trade deadline, which is obviously something that we've talked about, right?
Well, Connaughton was just lazy. Like, we know Torts likes him. He was there before. You gave 2 years to Kevin Connaughton. Why did you give 2 years to him and Sealer? Like, these are the most marginal depth defensemen in the NHL.
Yeah, these are players that you don't think they're not going to get 2 years from anybody. So why are you giving them that? I don't know. I mean, these are These are really good questions. I mean, I think Delorier, it's such a small number.
I would rather give Delorier 4 than Kevin Connauton 2.
Oh yeah, no, me too. Like that's why Delorier to me is the best thing they did was Delorier, even though it's not a great thing. But it does at least fill a hole that you had.
And the other shocking thing is, and of course it'll be up to Torts, but right now Tony DeAngelo is penciled in to be the number 2 defenseman for the Flyers, and he's never shown any ability to be able to be a number 2 guy or even a top 4 guy.
Got to kick this 1 second. Hold on.
Yeah. He's never shown that ability defensively. He has
never shown that ability. 1 second.
I mean, again, all we have to do is say, look what happened in Carolina. Carolina had a number in mind for DeAngelo because they know what he brings offensively, and they know that, he has some physicality in his game and he could skate.
And once
he got past $4 million, they were like,
yeah.
Sorry,
and look where Carolina thought it was the better choice to go after, even with reduced salary, to go after a 37-year-old declining Brent Burns, who's still a good defenseman, but he's declining. He's not the player he was 3 or 4 years ago. They thought it was a better option to go with a declining Brent Burns at $5.2 million for the next 3 years than to sign Tony DeAngelo, who had a career year last year, to a 2-year deal because he's too much of a wild card. And really, I mean, I don't know. We
even Brindamore couldn't control his temper when it came down to crunch time in the playoffs.
Right. We think we saw Ranger players pressing his buttons and getting him worked up and getting him to take stupid penalties.
Yeah.
And, like, you don't think that that's going to happen when they see the Islanders or the Rangers or the
now they were desperate. Is he going to help the power play? Sure. Is Torts going to make these guys play better defense? To a degree. And they got some guys who could penalty kill. What are they getting? 7, 8 more wins than last year? What's that going to do? Even if they get 10 more wins than last year, what's that going to do?
Yeah.
People will respect the Flyers more, but they're still going to be a bad team.
Yeah. Sorry about that. So listening to what you guys were saying, and I agree. That had to do with Klingberg. Okay. So the call had to do with Klingberg. He has been, like we talked about, like Cody Franzen is really my term I'm going to be using. I feel like he's going to be the Cody Franzen of this year's draft, of this year's free agency. And I feel like I'm right about that.
Is he going to go to Dallas for 1 year?
Well, no, I did write this and I tweeted it out too. I wrote about an hour ago that their camp has approached teams about a 1-year deal. There's 3 or 4 teams I know of that were approached about a 1-year deal.
He's going Taylor Hall is what he's doing.
Right, he's going to do the Taylor Hall thing. Now it does look like the Ottawa Senators are probably the favorite to get him. That's what I was just told.
Wow, they're just spending good money after bad.
Yeah.
I mean, this is after our show, I tuned into some of the coverage, TSN and Sportsnet, and I have to say, everybody's entitled to their opinions and everybody, but the lauding of the Ottawa Senators because they spent big money yesterday and made some bold moves. Remember, this is an organization that has just been out to lunch the last couple of years. So there was nowhere to go but up. And I love their young talent. Norris and Shabbat and Kachuk and Stützle. There's a lot of quality there. But to call a goaltending tandem of Anton Forsberg and Cam Talbot really good is wrong. It's good. It's okay. I think it's league average, but I don't think it's fantastic. Adding Alex DeBrincat, he's a really great scorer. But they subtracted Connor Brown, and Connor Brown is a good forward. So there was a little in, a little out. They add Giroux. He wants to be there. That's fantastic. If they bring in Klingberg, they're definitely spending money. I believe they're spending money to make that team look good so they can sell them. So the daughters of Eugene Melnyk.
I asked somebody about that yesterday, Mike, not to interrupt you, but I really, of course, that is a byproduct of what they're doing. They're making themselves more popular. But I also heard that the daughters actually have, they went to the draft. They're really they are absolutely taking this thing on as they are hockey fans, and they want. But they want this team to succeed, and that's why I think you're seeing more things happening. I think they're saying let's do some stuff, let's do things and make and them.
That would be great. Now yes, Ottawa can. Tony Soprano in the chat saying Klingberg wants $7 a year. I don't know if they're signing him long term for that kind of amount. I mean, if it's a shorter term deal, then that makes sense. I don't know if they're signing him long term there. But the thing was, it's like, okay, Edmonton hit it out of the park with the signing of Jack Campbell. Bullcrap, really. I mean,
well, that's your opinion.
Let me finish. Is Jack Campbell better than Mike Smith? Yes. He is. Yes, Mike Smith and Mikko Koskinen was arguably the worst tandem in the NHL last year, and Stuart Skinner and Jack Campbell is a definite upgrade over the two. Okay, I agree. Yes. Is Jack Campbell a good NHL goaltender? Yes. Is he a great NHL goaltender? No, he's not. And in front of that defense, and that defense now with, a young Philip Broberg and, Nurse will be back. And Tyson Berry can't play defense worth his salt. I mean, there's some holes there. If they upgrade their defense, but they don't have the money to upgrade their defense. They don't have the money to sign Kailer Yamamoto and to sign Puljujarvi. They're probably going to trade Puljujarvi a Fogle.
But getting back to Ottawa, there is reason to feel good. Cam Talbot's a huge upgrade over Matt Murray. Huge
upgrade, and also the people to forget that Forsberg was coming on. Like Forsberg was coming on too. Like Forsberg. The one thing I with Cam Talbot, it feels like Cam Talbot always ends up in the wrong place at the wrong time slightly. And part of what I feel like in this situation is that, to a degree, like, he's in Minnesota. They go get Fleury, but he's having a great year now. It was in the Rangers, obviously, was always a backup. Now he's coming in here, which is like as the big signing, but also at the time that Forsberg is starting to really look like something. Like he's starting to come on, and Forsberg could easily be the number one, and Talbot could be the backup next year.
Yeah, but they're probably afraid that Anton Forsberg is going to have a Chicago Blackhawks flashback.
Right, they're betting against that. But listen, again, I told Mike off air, I think Ottawa could make the playoffs. I don't think any Leafs fan should feel like they have an automatic entry into these playoffs. I don't.
No, well, I think you're wrong there, but I think Ottawa now can contend for a wild card. I don't think they're anywhere close to the top three in the Atlantic Division. I mean, you can say that Cam Talbot, the only thing that you get out of Cam Talbot compared to Matt Murray is health and consistency. But Matt Murray at his top end is better. Matt Murray at his top end is better goaltender than.
Are you guaranteeing that right now the Leafs are still better than Tampa, Florida, and the Bruins?
They're not. They weren't better than Tampa and Florida before with Campbell and Mrazek. I think they're closer with Murray and Samsonov, which I think is a better pairing than Campbell and Mrazek. Now, is the rest?
If you're already knowing that there is a challenge here, then you should be worried that they could drop out of it too. It doesn't take that much in the NHL.
I don't think there's a wild card team from that division. I mean, honestly,
if Austin Matthews gets hurt, Russ, then everything is up in the air.
Of course, but I think that I'm of the mindset that I'm not sure that there's a wild card team from that division. I think it is a 3 playoff team division, just because the Metro division is so freaking solid. Like,
I think as usual, it's going to be 4-4. Like it always ends up.
It's not always. It hasn't.
It's only the only reason it's been 4-4 a little bit lately, and it's not always that. But the only reason it's been that lately is if you have really bad teams in a division, yes, you can get the top 4 teams getting good enough records to make it, right? But Detroit's better, Ottawa's better, Buffalo's better.
No. Time out there. Because Ottawa's better, yes. Detroit's better, yes. Mm-hmm. Buffalo did what Buffalo does. Eric Comrie, Ilya Lyubushkin, and
but they're still improving. Their young players are getting better. They're improving. They didn't lose anything. They didn't go, and they're going into a season without the crazy Eichel thing, which is going to be good, which is going to be an advantage to them. They're entering, into the Owen Power Street world. There are things happening in Buffalo that are going to make them better than they were.
If they get growth out of their young players, then they will be better. Yes.
Right. And there's no reason to think that they won't get growth out of enough of those young players to make them at least better than they were.
But right now, their goaltending tandem this year is Eric Comrie and Craig Anderson. Doesn't exactly.
Right. No, they did the least amount, but Detroit did a heck of a lot, and Ottawa did a heck of a lot, and there's no question that they are now they're going to challenge. And Boston is, you could say, is perhaps heading downward. We always think that, but they get Krejci back. They are.
Well, I'll say it this way, and it's preseason talk, but the same way I'm saying you can't say the Leafs are 100% locked for the playoffs.
Nobody's 100% locked for the playoffs.
Okay, 90%.
There are teams that are.
You can't say the Islanders are 90% locked for the playoffs either.
No, exactly. And you can't say Boston is. There's certain teams that, there's only a few teams that you can definitely put into the playoffs, but there are some teams you can, for sure.
Well, unlike Philadelphia, Kyle Dubas said that the Leafs are not done. So,
I think that's important to see what else they do. Yeah.
They're still going to do something, but at the end of the day, and we cannot debate this goalie thing anymore because we're going to bore people to hell.
Yeah.
But I think at the end of the day, what has to be, we need to put an acceptance statement out that, listen, in this craziness of Matt Murray, Ottawa, Toronto, and Edmonton, they all made the moves that they wanted to make. Yes. They all did what they wanted to do. Now, whether or not we can sit here and debate whether that's better or worse. They made the moves they want to make.
And all three of them, I'm sure if you ask them, think their goaltending situation.
Right. All three feel good about where they are right now.
And this is the thing. Since I am a member of the media and but I'm allowed to have my opinion.
Sure, everybody is. No, everybody's allowed to have their opinion, but it's one thing to have your opinion it's one thing to have for a team, but it's another thing to have I don't know. I'm not even going to get into.
No, Mac, it's believe me, this as well as anyone. There have been moves that the Leafs have made over the last few years that
you're never put you always put them below me and generally when I predict where they're going to end up.
One last thing that we haven't even talked about.
Yes, please.
Johnny Gaudreau left without Calgary getting anything for him.
No, that's a big deal. And you know what I was told, actually? It's really funny. And Kevin and I talked about this. I wish he was on the air to talk because he said, you know what? Sometimes a team in this situation feels almost like just dirty trading for a third-round draft pick for his right.
You got to get assets.
Well, okay.
And I know you as a prospects guy, but I'm just saying, and I agree with you that it makes more sense to get something than not, right? There's no debating that. But there's this feeling that if they did that, first of all, you're not going to if you do that, you have to do it a couple days beforehand. And they really felt like till the end they had a shot at him.
Well, if you're talking about trading for negotiating rights, then really the horse is out of the barn in that respect. What I'm saying is here the ball that was dropped by Brad Treliving, and remember, Calgary was not a playoff team for the previous year. They were out of the playoffs. So at that point, if you don't get Johnny Gaudreau locked up on a long-term deal and you're not 100% confident that you can get him locked up during the year, then Brad Treliving, you must trade the guy. If you don't, you're abrogating your responsibility as a general manager. And honestly, you should be taking a lot of heat for that. Now, if you didn't want to sign, that's fine. You find out a year out and you trade him at that point. That's what they should have done.
I think we would have heard if an offer was made, and I don't believe an offer was made. And honestly, it just felt like they were like, hey, we think you could do better. And guess what? He did better, and now they lost him.
I think that, the Louis Gross Gaudreau camp, had nothing but nice things to say about the Calgary Flames and how they handled it. I think that I think it was a situation where.
Okay, do you think they were happy last summer when they didn't get, an offer? No.
No, definitely not. No, but I do think that sometimes people just know, I think that they just knew he was going to leave. I think they just knew he was going to go. And at that point, there's a frustration. And especially if it's like a relationship that's been together for a long time for them. And there's just a frustration that moving anything, even giving the player the feeling that he was traded for something. I think they just wanted not to do that.
Are they going to get something for Tkachuk, or is he going to walk too?
That's a really, really, really good question.
That's their two biggest assets right there.
Well, but okay, don't let history repeat twice. You go after Tkachuk. You say, Matthew, we want to sign you for 8 years. We want to make you the highest paid player on the team. We want to make you captain, blah, 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 everything. And if he says, no, I think I'll just accept the qualifying offer.
You trade him.
Then you trade him. You have to trade him. And if that means that you're going to reset because because Monahan's out probably for the year, Gaudreau's gone, Tkachuk's gone, then you reset. You have to do it. You cannot let that guy walk to UFA and get nothing for him. You cannot.
Right now, Calgary's done very little. They re-signed.
I mean, yeah, and I mean, Randy in the chat room, who is our Flames person, who's out there all the time and has been saying forever that Gaudreau was leaving, and that was, he was on top of that, is also saying in the chat room that Tkachuk is leaving.
But what are they doing to replace the Gaudreau money?
Yeah, well, they're not in on Kadri, that we know.
Let me, because I was gonna deviate to that, because Ken Hughes, the Habs GM, he's held his media availability today, and he said two things that we should talk about. One, he's talking to teams regarding Jeff Petrie.
Of course.
Of course. But one thing for sure, the Canadians do not want to give up prospects or picks to a team that will take Petrie's contract, which means it sounds like that Petrie is basically the defensive version of Max Pacioretty, but the difference is that Petrie's got 3 years as opposed to Pacioretty's 1. Correct. So that you can say all you want about not giving up a draft pick. You may have to give up a draft pick to get rid of somebody with 3 years left. I mean, if Dallas doesn't get Klingberg, then Dallas might be interested in a right shot defenseman, but 3 years at 6.25 for a 34-year-old defenseman is tough.
Well, hold on. So if Randy says Calgary is rebuilding, and they haven't announced it clearly, then they need to trade Matthew Tkachuk because he doesn't want to be there for a rebuild.
Right. I mean, if he wants to be part of the rebuild, then he's got.
He doesn't want to be.
No, right. I agree. It's like, but him signing a long-term extension. Is a tacit agreement of, okay, I want to be part of the solution here. Maybe we have to reset, whatever, but he's part of it. If he's not willing to sign anything more than a 1-year deal and walk to free agency, you trade his butt. You got to. The other thing Hughes said is that they're not chasing any UFAs like Nazem Kadri. He's not closing the door to UFAs that bring depth to the team. So
I'm hearing the Klingberg, the Senators thing's a 1-year deal. We'll find out more if it happens, but it really.
Look, Calgary re-signed Trevor Lewis, so all's good.
Yeah, I'm going to I saw that. I'm giving it like an E4/5 type thing right now. This is really as close as I can get to E5 without confirmation. I haven't been able to get it confirmed yet, but people are telling me, other teams are telling me that we're involved with this. That he's going to Ottawa for a 1-year deal. So we'll see.
Right now, Calgary's got like $25 million in cap space, something like that, a little less after these signings. They need to go after Tkachuk like today so they know where they're at. Because if they don't sign Tkachuk, then they should announce they're doing a rebuild.
They should. This, by the way, I want to answer this question because I just talked to somebody about this an hour ago. Do you see Nino Niederreiter reuniting with Ryan Johansson in Nashville? I don't know that they were super close or anything like that, but
where did they
play together?
Yeah, where did they play together? I don't
know that they
unless
did.
they played in junior together.
Maybe they're junior. They probably are because Mark, I think, is an old junior Canadian guy. Did they play? He'll tell us in the chat room, but they probably did. So yeah, in Portland. Okay, yeah, there you go.
Portland Hawks. Yeah.
All right, so there you go. Good job, Mark. Yeah, he's a good one in there. I appreciate you in the chat room. So anyway, I have not heard that. I was talking to somebody about the Predators, and a name came up, but it wasn't like anything. They were just kind of bringing it up.
Fans weren't happy. Now they got Forsberg resigned, but they basically slept yesterday.
But they already did their thing. They're not just getting. But if yesterday they had re-signed Forsberg and gotten McDonough, everybody would be like, "Wow, that's the greatest thing ever."
No, that's fair. I mean,
those are two seriously good pickups like
that.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you what fans were feeling.
No, I know fans want something on the day, and that's why I said Columbus fans got the thrill of actually having something happen on the day, which is but it's like opening your presents before Christmas or on Christmas Day. It's more exciting.
Coal on your present has coal in it.
Yeah, coal on.
The eight glorious nights of Hanukkah. The whole thing. It's just like you save it for the last night, the big present. You wait. What's going on. So yeah,
coal is coal.
Having kids, having a Christian and Jewish household, I have to do Christmas.
I got to tell you,
Anaheim. Let's talk about Kadri.
Well, 1 second. I just want to say the Anaheim signing of Ryan Strome 5 for 5.
Yeah,
that's not going to end well.
Yeah, I don't think so.
No.
I like a lot of things.
He's already starting to tail off. Watch him. Let's see what he does without Panarin. That's going to be
what I don't understand about that deal, Russ, is the fact that they've already got. I mean, Adam Henrique. There was talk about them buying him out last year. So now you have Adam Henrique. And now you have Strome, and you have two young centers in Zegras and Mason McTavish. I mean, are they going to move those guys to the wing, or are they going to move Strome to the wing? I mean, it's
they might put Strome back on the wing.
Yeah, and I don't think he's a good winger. I really don't. I think he's a better center than he is a winger. But okay, but Kadri, could this be the forward version of Taylor Hall in the sense that, Trocheck, Rangers, that's one team out.
Cop, I like the signing for the chat room.
Yeah. Cop, Detroit, another team out. Bergeron and Krejci back to Boston. There's another team out. Okay, where's he going? I mean, we heard something today about maybe he's going back to Colorado. With what money? I mean, they have to pay McKinnon. So, is Kadri going to go to Seattle where he can make more money? Is he going to go to Anaheim? Is he, is he going to go to Washington? I mean, the number of options with Nazem Kadri is starting to dry out. And
he's looking for a contract. He just won a cup. He needs to get somewhere between 3 and 5 years on a deal at least.
Yeah, I mean, I think
five.
Yeah, I don't know. We could see like 2. I don't know. Yeah.
No, but if he were to get,
I was told there weren't nearly as many teams that made PowerPoints for him that they expected.
Yeah.
Well, right, because in spite of the fact, and I could have predicted this, in spite of the fact that he had a career year, in spite of the fact that he kept his powder dry, that he behaved himself, that he did that, and he came through in the playoffs with a big goal and a big playoff, even coming back from injury. All those were positive things. The negatives about Nazem Kadri are still there, and people are worried about those negatives. Plus, his agent, Darren Ferris, has a nasty history. He's the one who got the 1-year, $8 million deal for Taylor Hall. I mean, because nobody wanted to negotiate a long-term deal at that point.
Yeah.
He took the quick money, and then he got the 4-year deal from Boston. But his agent has a reputation of being a difficult guy to negotiate with. So,
if I were Kadri, of course, you could tell the agent what to do. If I were him, I would go up to him and say, you know what? Let's just go back to Colorado for a year, and we'll regroup for next year. I'll still be one of the top free agents next year. We try and win another cup. Let's just do that.
But a 33-year-old as opposed to a 32-year-old, Russ, your clock is ticking.
It's not like he's hurting for money.
Yeah. No. Although he probably is hurting a little bit for money because Lou Lamoriello lowballed him on his last deal with.
I'm sure Sakic would bring him back at like 7 or 8.
Right, for 1 year because it won't affect McKinnon's amount next year. Yeah, no, I believe they have the cap space this year to accommodate.
Why not just pocket that 7 or 8 and try and win a second cup?
Yeah, no, and then they have right now. Well, with all the signings that they've made, they only have $3 million in cap space. It would probably mean
they'd have to get rid of Gerard, but I think that's a mistake if they do. But
then they have to ask Eric Johnson to retire.
That's what they need to do. Yeah.
So I'm going to throw something out there that's a little bit. I was trying to get clearance for this. So we're texting here because it's a little bit. It's interesting in a couple different ways. Okay. So in the Patrick Kane situation that's going on, the feeling was okay. We all think that they want to move Patrick Kane, right? That they're going to sit there and they're going to move Kane. But I get the impression now that they're not going to move Kane at all, and that they're not going to move him until the deadline at least. And I get the impression that they're going to which is kind of goes against the whole tank mentality. Every player they picked up yesterday, they picked up like some real Athanasiou and Max Dunmo, real trade deadline characters. They really went trade deadline, full out trade deadline.
Well, they have to make the cap floor, and the Kane $10.5 million enables them to do it. And the question is for Kyle Davidson is, what do you get by trading Kane now as opposed to what you get for him at the deadline? And if it's pretty much the same, then you hold on to him.
I know a team that did call regarding him. 2 teams actually that called when all this was going down at the draft. It's like, hey, you guys trying to move Kane, that kind of thing. I'm sure every GM did. And every decision GM, and they were told, no, we're not moving him. That's what they were told at that time. So that's pretty intriguing, I think, because it does give you a little bit of insight into, okay, that makes things the Rangers have called, obviously, and they've been told, no, we're not moving him. And then, we weren't one of the teams that I talked to. But if that's the case, then the Rangers get back in on this JT Miller train, or do they just ride it out with Trocheck? I think they should just ride it out with Trocheck. That's what I think they should do. But JT Miller is a very intriguing thing for the Rangers for some reason, right, Russ?
Yeah, now that they have Trocheck, they're out.
I don't think they can afford. First of all, the assets that it would take to afford to get him, plus if you're trading him, are you just trading him as a 1-year rental? I mean, if you're trading significant assets, and let's just say, for example, it's the usual player prospect number 1. Okay.
Right.
So it's that. Okay. So the Rangers is Kakko, Lundqvist, and a number 1. Okay. You're not giving up that unless you're trying to get him signed. And now that they've signed Trocheck for 7 years, and they have a Zibanejad, and they have Kreider, and they have Panarin, I don't think they can invest $8-9 million on a forward, because Keandre Miller's coming up for a new contract. They have other players that are coming up for a contract. So they just Lafreniere is coming up for a new contract. So I don't think they can do it.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And and that's where the Thomas signing will affect guys like Lafreniere, what the Rangers do with him down the line. But I could see. Listen, maybe Columbus tries to trade for Miller because he's from there, and they rent him. Yeah. It's from Ohio.
How about Line A for JT Miller?
Maybe.
Perhaps. I mean, there is another rumor that's flying around that the Flyers tried to make a Provorov for Jacob Chychrun deal yesterday.
But that's only one part of the 3 or 4 first round of equivalents that you need.
Right. There's only one part. And
why would Arizona want? Okay, Arizona wants to shed salary and go prospect, and you're giving him a defenseman who I think is older, right, Russ?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're giving an older, more
salaries at like 4 something.
Right. Chychrun is making less than 5. Provorov is making over 6.
Oh, that's right. He's over 6 on the new one. You're right.
Yeah. So he's more expensive. He's older. And, his reputation as a number 1 defenseman has taken a hit over the last couple of years with the Flyers. So it doesn't add up. I mean, it might maybe a 3-way deal where they get Chychrun and Provorov goes someplace else, and Arizona gets picks and prospects. They're all in on, like Chicago. They're all in on Connor Bedard and finishing dead last. That's the reality.
Yeah. I think that is.
Yeah, if the Flyers wanted to get Chychrun, they're going to have to trade that first round pick.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. They would have to do that, I would think too. And that would be dumb. That would be dumb. Yeah, in all likelihood would be
dumb. Because in the end, you're better off just waiting for him to get out of Arizona, or to the point where he says, I want out, and the price drops.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still trying to find out. There was apparently a deal. I don't know if you guys have heard of it or anything like that, where Chychrun almost went at the draft.
I did not hear
that Arizona. I know Arizona. I know this for a fact that Arizona thought they had it done, and then it didn't happen. And then oddly enough, I was told that the guy, one of the guys from Arizona, went on TSN right after it fell apart and was really just kind of like, well, we don't know what's going to happen with Chychrun type thing. But yeah, he obviously he's from Philadelphia to a degree. Like, he grew up here when his father was here, and his family still is here. And so there's benefits to that as well, but I don't know that that's where they're going to go with Provorov or not. But I do feel like that Provorov will probably get moved at some point here.
I do find the talk, the chatter about Dylan Strome very interesting, because especially from the Toronto fan base, where he scored 48 points last year. I don't think he's particularly good as a winger, Russ.
No,
he's not particularly fast. So I don't think he's going to take like a veteran minimum contract to go someplace for a year. He's going to make money. He's going to sign someplace that needs a center. And let's just say there are players out there, just talking Leafs here, but the other teams as well. There are players out there, I think, that are prepared to take less to go someplace that they're familiar with for a year to, okay, let's go to Toronto. Let's go to this place. Let's go to that place for 1 year, try to win, and then put ourselves out on the market. Just like we were talking about with Klingberg. I think there's a lot of players that are willing to do that, especially with the cap being flat.
I don't think Storm can afford to do that, because if he does that, if he has a mediocre year, he's out of hockey.
Right, exactly. He's 25 years old. He's got to get as much term and as much money as possible.
I can see him going to be the third center in Seattle.
Yeah,
that's possible.
That's possible.
Take
the heat off. Would make sense. He would make sense in that situation because he's a pretty good power play player, and he has some, some things he could bring into that team, and go get behind, Bernier and behind, Wright. You have like an interesting. He would be an interesting third guy for that if he could fall into that. If he could learn that role as third line center.
Ohio is Ohio. It doesn't matter if it's close to Pittsburgh or whatever. If you're in Ohio,
it is. No, we do appreciate the Ohio lesson, though. But
I know.
It is closer to Pittsburgh for sure. But it is actually closer. It's closer than Red Deer is to Columbus. Like Red Deer, Alberta is further away than JT Miller is.
And Erie, Pennsylvania is closer to Buffalo than a lot of other places. But guess what? If you grow up there, you're still from Pennsylvania.
Right. Right. And the Flyers, I think, should keep Provorov, guys. But I think there seems to be some stuff.
He'll be fine under Torts. People have way overblown this. I get that he had a bad exit meeting. So what? That's what exit meetings are for. If somebody got their feelings hurt in the Flyers organization, too bad.
Yeah.
That's why you have these meetings. You have to have a thick skin, and you have to want to fix things that your players are telling you. That's the point of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Paul in the chat was saying 3.4 to 4 million for me, and he thinks that's an overpayment. I'll take $1.5 million.
It's an overpayment.
I'll take $1.5 million. $1.5 million or $2 million. That'll work.
Finally, before we get out of here, the Canadiens and Jets are indeed discussing a Pierre-Luc Dubois trade, I was told. And that is something that, would be another big coup for the Montreal Canadiens.
Josh Anderson?
Probably. It would be a good bet in that one, I think.
Well, that's
Pierre-Luc Dubois, though.
Josh Anderson if I were the Jets.
If Dubois moves again, you have to wonder about him. Like, you're starting to get that point where you're starting to wonder about, like.
No, I get it, but he's still better than you. Got to get more than that, and I don't want that player either.
But we have to say that about both ends of that deal. Pierre-Luc Dubois is 2 years away from unrestricted free agency. So is Laine. Laine is an RFA, and he hasn't signed in Columbus. And Dubois basically has told Winnipeg, in 2 years, I'm gone, so trade my ass. That's what he's saying.
Yeah.
So right now, like, both those guys have big question marks. And the only thing I would say with Montreal is, okay, Josh Anderson, he's got 5 years left at $5.5 million.
I'm not touching him.
Yeah, I wouldn't touch him with a 10-foot pole. I really wouldn't.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I do agree with that. And I got Andrew in the chat room, like, talking about Provorov. I love Provorov. Don't get me wrong. I don't think the Flyers should move him at all. I think it's a terrible move. I think if we, like I said, I've been on the record before saying if there was an actual Olympics this past year, Provorov would have been one of the top two defenders for Team Russia.
He's on the Russian team, no doubt.
Yeah, it would have been. I think he would have been one on the top pairing of the Russian team, honestly. And people he does deserve a lot of credit. He is a good player.
I'll tell you what. If I'm trading Dubois, I want like a second-round pick. I'll take Anderson, and then you're giving me Jan Mysak too for the trouble.
There you go.
Or one of the
with 31 goals in the AHL last year.
Or one of the prospects that they just drafted.
No, but I'd rather have Mysak because he's further along and he's a goal scorer.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with that. All right, that's all the time I have for today, folks. Quick show as always. Of course, it is quick after you do a 4-hour show yesterday.
I slept last night.
I know. I still haven't slept. I was up till 2 and then up again at 6. I'm going on fumes. Remember, without the buzz, folks, it is just hockey. We will talk to you all tomorrow.